Why, if the investigation into why Tua was allowed to return to the game in week 3 against the Bills, if that investigation was still open for the Thursday Night Football Week 4 opener, how was Tua allowed to return? They allowed him to play. He was allowed to get on the field. The Players Association didn't keep him from the field. The league didn't keep him from the field, even though they did. Dr. Alan Sills said he was clear and checked every single day leading up to that game. If they had yet to speak to the independent neurologist who allowed Tua back on the field on Sunday, how was he allowed into the game at all? Shouldn't he be kept off the field? Anybody who's returned to play is under investigation. Shouldn't that player be sat like he is in the concussion protocol until the investigation is complete? I need an answer to that question.
Probably, but remember, he was allowed back in the game because he said it was my back, and now we need to find out whether it's the independent neurologist or the team physician after he passed his halftime test, whether they bought that. And evidently they did buy it, because after the game, the head coach of the Dolphins, Mike McDaniel, talked about the back injury and said, and I'd have to go back and get his quotes exactly, but didn't he, after the game, say he was cleared? He didn't have a concussion.
Oh, yeah, and so did Tua. And so anybody, in a position like mine that comes on and goes, lower back injury, huh? Like, you're now accusing the others of lying. And it is possible he had just a back injury and then he wound up in the game, on Thursday. But, Peter, if the Players Association finds the independent neurologist so hostile or not understanding his role, as was reported, to the point where they exercise their right to fire him, and Tua is allowed to play the night before, and we saw that fencing response on the field, how does that happen? Right? I mean, shouldn't...
Because he came out of Sunday, and everybody bought what the two doctors said at halftime, which is that he passed the test, he's able to go back. Rich, either one of those doctors could have prevented that from happening. They didn't prevent it, and after the game, they said that it was not a concussion. And I don't know what they said, but they clearly said it was not a concussion, because if it was a concussion, he would not have gone back in the game, and he would have started the week in concussion protocol.
And I get it, Peter. So, my question, though, is that if that scenario, what wasn't fishy, then there wouldn't have been an investigation opened. So what I'm saying is that if you're concerned about his return to play on a Sunday was not up to snuff and that might have missed something, then why do you allow him to play before you speak to the person in the investigation to see if it was up to snuff or not on that Sunday, despite the clear tests between Monday and Wednesday? You hadn't spoken to the doctor yet, and then you do, and he's fired. And then the night before you speak to the doctor, Tua's damn near overnight hospitalized. And the whole country's horrified. That's what I'm just saying. Is that if there's enough question to spark an investigation, then that player's out until the investigation's complete. Period. End of story. And that should be a new rule.
I don't think that's a bad idea at all, Rich. I think I agree with it, but I also think that that, as Mike McDaniel said, and again, the diagnosis of this injury may in fact be really all wrong and erring on the side of football,
right? Not
erring on the side of the player. But if you have people telling you 3 days in a row that this guy is clear, he can play, then obviously the coach is going to play the guy.
Absolutely.
And now, in retrospect, I think the most logical thing to do is once you have, once you are shown to be as shaky as Tua Tagovailoa was, and you have people all over the stadium on the sidelines and up in the press box, being able to analyze replays and being able to look at a guy hitting his head hard on the turf. My whole problem with this is once the gross motor instability was shown, that's when he should have been out of the game for good. And that is what should have made the decision, not the fact that maybe he was smart enough to pass the test at halftime. So there's a lot wrong with this decision. But I do think that it's going to get better. Oh. But I also think that parents around the country, and I had about 60 of them who wrote to me this week, many of whom said, my kid will never play football. And this is just an exclamation point on it. That is what is being lost in a way in this. The fact that the NFL is going to start losing a huge number of its, candidate players down the road because really good athletes are going to be kept out of football because parents don't want their brains to be scrambled.